Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel and welcome to the Modern Warfare multiplayer beta. Today's the first day of the beta, which means we are all just getting our feet wet when it comes to the Modern Warfare multiplayer. I have a lot of things I want to discuss about the game. I have so many first impressions I want to go over, but I'm going to save that until after I have a bit more experience with the game itself. Because of that, the focus of this particular video is not going to be the game and how it feels or anything like that, but rather, I want to focus on something I found while playing, and it's something I'm not happy about whatsoever, and I'm sure that the vast majority of you are going to feel the same way. So after hitting rank 6 in the beta, I backed out of my game so I could start customizing my classes. I've been leveling up the MP5 because I love that gun, and I want to see what attachments were available, and then I jumped back into the matchmaking. Turns out I didn't really need to do that, considering in Modern Warfare you can adjust your classes mid-game, which is fantastic, but regardless, while searching for a new match, I randomly happened to check my after-action report. And that's when I saw it, staring me right in the face. Unlocked, loot box, common supply drop. Ladies and gentlemen, supply drops are now officially confirmed for the Call of Duty Modern Warfare multiplayer, and not only that, but it appears that we're going to be seeing different rarities of supply drop as well. Now, an interesting note is this appears to be an unlock at rank 6, which seems to suggest that we're going to be unlocking supply drops as we level up when the full game comes out in October, but the big takeaway from this is supply drops are back, there will be different rarities, and we're likely going to see the exact same microtransaction problems with this game that we've seen in pretty much every Call of Duty game since Advanced Warfare, though it could be argued it's been getting progressively worse ever since Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. Now, in case you guys haven't heard, let me run down a couple of facts for you. Number 1, Call of Duty points are confirmed to be in this game. In fact, there's a special edition of Modern Warfare that costs $100 that will give you 3,000 COD points, which all but guarantees we will be able to buy COD points when the full game comes out. Number 2, Infinity Ward has also announced, therefore it is 100% confirmed, that post-launch weapons will be coming to the game. They said that we are going to learn more about this as we get closer to launch, but with supply drops now being confirmed and COD points being in the game, I'll give you guys one guess as to how some of these post-launch weapons are going to be unlocked. Number 3, we also have other bonuses for pre-ordering, such as weapon variants and DLC operators, so I think it's safe to assume that along with weapons and the typical emblem and calling card filler, we're also going to be seeing variants, operators, weapon camos, weapon charms, and pretty much everything else that we've been seeing in supply drops over the course of the past couple of years. With the recent report that Activision made $800 million from microtransactions during Q2 alone, that's only 3 months, guys. I don't think today's news is really surprising anyone, despite the stigma that loot boxes and microtransactions appear to have on places like YouTube, Reddit, and Twitter. It appears that we are just a vocal minority of players who have a problem with this kind of system being in our games. There appears to be a vast, silent majority of people who are continuously feeding into this system, and that is fueling the fires over at Activision to continue adding things like this to every single Call of Duty game. Now, I often see the argument, if you don't like supply drops, don't buy them, right? And I definitely respect that opinion. I see where people are coming from, but that is not the solution to our problem. I don't know about you guys, but I personally haven't purchased a single supply drop since the beginning of the black market blackout back in Black Ops 3, and I know there are millions of other players out there like me who do the same thing, but with the sheer volume of people who purchase and play Call of Duty every single year, it seems like all of our efforts are pretty much for nothing. I also see people claiming that supply drops being in the game does not affect their enjoyment of the game, but I feel like I speak for a lot of people when I say that it most certainly does affect our enjoyment of the game. What you have to understand is that supply drops are not simply just a small feature in the Call of Duty multiplayer. Each title is quite literally designed around the idea of supply drops and microtransactions, and every feature in the game's multiplayer is meant to encourage players to spend more money. Let's take a look at two different games, right? The two most recent games, Call of Duty World War II and Call of Duty Black Ops 4. Each of those games released with way less maps at launch than any title before them. The reason why is because Activision wanted to encourage more people to buy the season pass, right? So they cut maps from the base game, therefore we get tired of playing the same maps over and over, and therefore we feel pressured into buying the season pass so we can access more maps to play on. Whereas back in the Call of Duty heyday, think maybe back to Call of Duty 4, World at War, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 1, those games on average, I'm just ballparking here, would release with 16 original maps at launch as compared to the 9 original maps that we've been getting over the course of the past couple of years. You then take a look at weapon counts in those games as well. Games are releasing with way less weapons than ever before, and therefore, guns are being added post-launch as a way for Activision to make more money. In Call of Duty World War II, at least we were able to save up our Armory credits to unlock these new weapons as they came out, but Armory credit acquisition was inherently tied to luck, as was supply drops themselves, and the system was also set up in a way where if you did not play the game an absolute ton and have hundreds of thousands of credits saved up in between events, you weren't going to be able to unlock that new content as it came out, and then you would find yourself in a hole where there were so many weapons you could not unlock or you haven't unlocked yet, and you were just basically in this hole where there was no way to get all of them unless you were to play an absolute ton. Like, picture the amount of playtime that YouTubers and live streamers put in. If you didn't put in that exact same amount of time, you weren't going to be able to unlock every single weapon within that game. Now, you guys may be thinking, why did they even make it so we could unlock that content by playing the game a ton? Well, the answer is, one, it was nice that if you did put in the time, you could actually unlock the content, but two, they did it because they want to have their player retention numbers inflated, right? So they could brag about that to their shareholders and use it as a token of the game's success. So it was a win-win for them. They got people to play their game a ton, or they got people to spend a ton of money to take a shortcut. One of those two things had to happen if you wanted to unlock all the new DLC content. You then look at Black Ops 4, and not only do we have way less maps in this game at launch, original maps that is, than in previous years, but we also have one of the most robust and exploitative in-game stores that we have ever seen. Have you ever noticed how if you want to buy a Blackout character or a camo off the black market, it always comes with a bundle, right? There's always a bunch of filler content and tiers that you have to complete. Think about that for a second. You literally have to pay money for the privilege to then play 6 to 8 hours to be able to unlock the thing that you paid money for. This is because not only does Activision want your money for the items that should have been in the game at launch, but they also want to increase their player retention numbers so they can show it off to their shareholders and brag about it in their conference calls, which we have seen them do that time and time again. You then look at the fact that there are nearly a dozen weapons that are exclusively locked within supply drops, and even more than that depending on whether or not you were able to complete the previous operations on time and unlock weapons like the SWAT or the Rampage. And looking at the Battle Pass itself, like the Battle Pass is designed to encourage people to continue playing the game, and I personally love the Battle Passes. Like, the contraband streams are fun because for me, I get to go through, I get to unlock stuff for free for playing the game, which I'm going to be doing anyway, but looking at it from a business perspective, the reason why it's there is not because they just love us and they want to give us a bunch of stickers, it's because they want us to play the game more, and that's why there's always something really good at the end of the contraband stream, whereas the vast majority of it is just filler content like stickers and emblems and things like that. If you take a good hard look at each Call of Duty game over the course of, say, the past 5 years or so, you're going to realize that they are designed from the ground up to be monetized and pull more money from the player base. Back in the day, back in the Call of Duty heyday, the days that we all look back on so fondly, games were releasing with, on average, 15 or 16 original maps at launch. We had 3 full modes, whether it was campaign multiplayer zombies or campaign multiplayer spec ops or what have you. We had 3 full game modes, and we also had, on average, like 40 or 50 weapons in the multiplayer at launch, and things were great, right? People would buy season passes because they didn't really feel like they were as much of a ripoff as they are today. These days, they are quite literally cutting core content from the base game and repackaging it and reselling it to us as DLC, and we have irrefutable proof of this because of Call of Duty World War II. Who remembers this? No doubt some hardcore fans out there are definitely going to remember this. During the World War II beta, the PC beta specifically, fans were able to dig around within the game's files, and in there, we found all of DLC 1. Every single DLC 1 multiplayer map was in the beta game files for World War II, but they weren't there at launch. And it's because they were supposed to be there at launch, but they decided to cut that from the base game and give us 9 standard multiplayer maps, so we would feel more pressured to purchase DLC 1. 1 and get access to the other 3 multiplayer maps that should have been there at launch. I've used this expression so many times, but back in the day, the base game, the game that we got at launch in the Call of Duty franchise was the cake, right? And then the season pass content and stuff like that, that was all icing on the cake. The game felt complete without it, but it was a little bit of extra that we could have paid for if we chose to because we wanted to expand our experience a bit. Well, these days, it seems like downloadable content and season passes and microtransactions, they are the cake now, right? That's the vast majority of Call of Duty's content every single year. It's DLC, and the vast majority of that is locked behind a paywall. Call of Duty went from being a $60 title to being essentially a $100 title. You basically have to buy the season pass these days if you want access to a full game's worth of content, and on top of that, you also have to spend even more if you want to unlock everything that the game has to offer. I keep going back to Black Ops 4, but in Black Ops 4, I'm a Prestige Master level 400. I have over 20 days of playtime. I've literally done every challenge in the game's multiplayer, and I've completed all the battle passes, but I don't have every DLC weapon in the game, because it's locked behind RNG, it's locked behind supply drops, and not to mention the sheer number of camos and blackout characters, and pretty much weapon variants, like everything that is exclusively locked within the black market. I cannot get that content. No matter what I do, no matter how hard I play, no matter how good I am or bad I am or whatever, I cannot unlock that content because so much of it is locked behind a paywall. That's why today's news involving Modern Warfare is so disappointing. I wasn't even 1 hour into playing the multiplayer beta, and I discovered that supply drops are returning, and now I just know that they're going to play the game's multiplayer like they've played virtually every other multiplayer since Advanced Warfare. Again, it goes back to that idea of the silent majority of people that are continuously funding this kind of stuff in video games, and it's not even just in the Call of Duty franchise, it's pretty much everywhere, and the games industry is getting better. A lot of developers and publishers are taking steps to make things better, but Activision's Activision. They are very slow to adapt to new ideas into the changing landscape that we have here in the gaming industry, and what worries me the most is for the average fan, the casual gamer out there, supply drops and loot boxes are just part of gaming now, right? There's an entire generation of gamers out there who were just brought up with this idea that supply drops and loot boxes are going to be in their games, and they've come to expect it, not knowing how good things used to be before this plague ended up hitting the scene. The future of Modern Warfare is definitely up in the air right now. My hope is that Activision and Infinity Ward are going to address public concerns about supply drops being in the beta, but we've seen this all before, right? I've been covering Call of Duty for a very long time, and if I can make a prediction, I want you guys to mark this video here. My prediction is they are going to completely ignore this altogether. They are not going to acknowledge at all that supply drops are appearing within the beta itself. They're going to act as if it never happened and just move on, right? Then, as we get closer to launch, they are going to announce something about supply drops, and they're going to try to frame it as it's going to be the best and most consumer-friendly supply drop system that we've ever had, and they're going to be talking about how it's all going to be cosmetic only and how we're going to unlock a ton of them by leveling up. And then, like it's happened each year for the past 5 years, after the holiday season, things are going to change, and real game-changing content are going to be added to supply drops, and it's only going to get worse and worse throughout the year 2020. Again, mark my words, save this video so we can go back and look at it later, because I am almost positive that is how things are going to play out. I hope I'm wrong. I would absolutely love to be completely wrong about this, but like I said, I've been following the Call of Duty franchise very closely for most of my adult life, and to be quite perfectly, brutally honest, guys, it's getting pretty fucking predictable. As always, I will do my best to keep you guys posted with more news and details surrounding this as those details become available, but for right now, I'm going to wrap up this video and jump back into the multiplayer beta. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave your thoughts and feedback down there in the comments. Thank you guys all so much for listening, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful day.